This is the story of a modern aircraft that vanished in an age when nothing should be able to disappear. A flight that took 239 souls into the night sky and never returned. This is the haunting mystery of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, the plane the world is still searching for. On March 8, 2014, 239 passengers and crew were on board Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, which took off from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, bound for Beijing, China. But the flight never arrived at its destination. In fact, it never returned to Kuala Lumpur either. As the hours passed without word from the missing aircraft, anxiety mounted and the unimaginable became all too real. The world's worst fears were confirmed at 6:16 a.m. local time when Malaysia Airlines announced that contact had been lost with flight MH370 and that the plane had disappeared. But how could a fully functioning modern plane simply disappear? It wasn't like the airplane was old or prone to breaking down. Plus, there was no sign of trouble before it vanished. So what happened? At 12:41 a.m. on March 8, 2014, the Boeing 777-200E took off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport carrying 239 people. The flight crew comprised 6 members, including Captain Zahari Shah, who had logged over 19,000 hours of flight time, and First Officer Michaelmas, who had over 6,000 hours under his belt. The passengers were a mix of nationalities, mostly Chinese nationals returning home from the holiday season in Malaysia. 2 weeks prior, they had boarded the plane full of excitement, anticipation, and smiles. Little did they know that this journey would be unlike any other. Shortly after takeoff, the pilots engaged with air traffic control to hand over their responsibility to the next controller at the Ho Chi Minh City approach control frequency, exchanging pleasantries with their colleagues. The plane was expected to reach its cruising altitude of 35,000 feet and maintain a speed of 479 knots. Everything seemed fine. But little did they know that fate had already intervened and their ordeal was about to begin. At 1:19 a.m., the co-pilot's final words crackled over the radio. "Good night, Malaysian 370, followed by the sound of static. The automated voice from the aircraft called out the time and altitude. Time 1:19 a.m., flight time 0 hours and 38 minutes, altitude 34,000 feet. The plane continued on its journey towards Beijing as the early morning hours ticked by. But as the plane reached its planned cruising altitude, something unusual happened. The secondary radar and automatic dependent surveillance broadcast, or a DNSB transponder, stopped working, sending no signals to air traffic control or online flight trackers. According to the pre-programmed route, the plane should have been cruising over southern Vietnam, between Thailand and Cambodia. However, there was no sign of the aircraft on radar screens. As the minutes turned into hours, worry turned to panic and confusion reigned supreme. So why did the plane go dark? We may never know for sure, but let's keep digging for clues. After being handed over to Vietnamese authorities, Flight MH370 remained undetected until it appeared on military radar. The plane had deviated from its normal flight path and turned 180 degrees west, retracing its steps back across the Malay Peninsula. The last civilian radar data indicated that the plane had maintained an altitude of 34,000 feet and a speed of 470 knots during this period. But how did the plane manage to stay hidden from radar? At 1:41 a.m., the plane turned back towards the Malacca Strait, passing over Penang and then Butterworth in Malaysia. Moments later, it was detected on military radar, flying away from its original course. At 1:52 a.m., the aircraft made a sharp turn to the west, banking away from its previous heading and altering its course by 180 degrees. This maneuver took the plane away from its designated flight path and set it on a new trajectory over the Andaman Sea. the plane continued on this new route, maintaining an altitude of 34,000 feet and a speed of 470 knots. As the hours passed, the plane flew on autopilot for an additional 6 hours, covering a distance of 2,300 nautical miles before it ran out of fuel and crashed into the Indian Ocean. This portion of the journey remained shrouded in mystery, leaving investigators with more questions than answers. Was the plane deliberately diverted? Did the pilot make an error, or was it sabotaged? And why did the plane fly for hours without anyone realizing it? These are some of the critical questions surrounding the incident. The lack of clarity and evidence has led to numerous conspiracy theories and speculation, making it one of the most perplexing cases in aviation history. But despite these questions and theories, the truth remains elusive. On March 24, 2014, the Australian Transport Safety Bureau, ATSB, released a report based on satellite data analysis from the United Kingdom Air Accidents Investigation Branch, AAI, indicating that the plane had flown for another 6 hours after disappearing from civilian radar. According to the report, the plane's automated messages were picked up by a satellite, suggesting that it had continued over the Indian Ocean, contradicting earlier assumptions that it had turned back towards Malaysia or Indonesia. This development provided crucial insight into the plane's final moments and helped narrow the search area. The Airbus A330-300 is equipped with a total of 8 emergency locator transmitters, ELTS, 2 of which are designed to emit signals at both 406 MHz and 121.5 MHz frequencies. These signals are crucial for search and rescue operations, as they can be picked up by low-frequency direction finding, LFD, systems used by search aircraft. Additionally, the plane also has a cockpit voice recorder, CVR, and a digital flight data recorder, DFDR, which contain information about the flight and cockpit conversations. But the problem is that nobody knows where these recorders are, or if they even exist anymore. Following the release of the report, the ATSB initiated a comprehensive underwater search using sonar in an area of 24,000 square miles. Despite extensive efforts, the search failed to locate any debris from the plane. Since the tragic disappearance of flight MH370, various theories have emerged attempting to explain the plane's vanishing act. One of the leading hypotheses is pilot suicide, suggesting that one of the pilots intentionally crashed the plane. This theory is supported by the fact that the plane was flying on autopilot and the transponder was turned off, indicating a deliberate attempt to evade detection. However, this theory does not explain why the plane changed course and flew for hours without any apparent reason. Another theory suggests that the plane was hijacked for reasons such as political or terrorist motives. This theory is supported by the plane's sudden change in course and the lack of communication with the crew. But the motive behind such a hijacking remains unclear. There is also a theory that mechanical failure caused the plane to lose altitude, resulting in a controlled or uncontrolled descent into the ocean. But this theory does not account for the plane's ability to fly for hours without any signs of distress. Moreover, Boeing 777s have an excellent safety record, and there was no indication of mechanical problems prior to the flight. As the investigation continues, the search for answers persists with authorities and experts working tirelessly to piece together the puzzle. While the disappearance of flight MH370 remains one of the most baffling mysteries in aviation history, the unwavering determination to uncover the truth keeps hope alive. Despite the challenges, the global community remains committed to supporting the search efforts, driven by the shared desire to find answers for the families of those affected by this tragedy. When the plane was reported missing, a massive search and rescue operation was launched, involving multiple countries and agencies. The operation involved ships, submarines, and aircraft scouring an extensive area of the Indian Ocean. However, despite extensive efforts, no trace of the plane was found. The disappearance of flight MH370 shocked the world and raised critical questions about aviation safety and security. The lack of concrete answers and physical evidence has left a void filled by speculation and conspiracy theories. As we reflect on this somber event, we remember the 239 individuals who embarked on that fateful journey. Their absence continues to be deeply felt by their families, friends, and all who were touched by their lives. The legacy of Flight MH370 serves as a reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of seeking truth and justice in the face of adversity. What do you think really happened to MH370? Do you believe that the plane was hijacked? Or was it a case of pilot error? Or do you think there's a more sinister explanation behind its disappearance? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like and share this video if you think it'll help spread awareness about this tragic event. Thank you for watching.